Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to another game dev. We're with part... I'm going to start that intro over. Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. We had a part 1 earlier today where we looked at some enemy behaviors. This is going to be a follow-up to that. We are in our second stream still looking at the way that this enemy reacts when it has a ranged attack. Well, I guess we'll reset here. But essentially, the problem we're trying to solve is, can we make more complex enemy behaviors that require the player to have more thought put into their actions? Essentially, at any given moment, if the player has some information being displayed on the screen, like here, the enemy's going to attack at 5 time units, which I refer to as CT. In 5 CT, it's going to attack. And I know that my slash is going to have 4 turns, defend is going to be 2, and bash is going to be 8. Based off this, I know I can get a slash in, and then it'll be at 1, so I can defend that attack, reducing its damage. Now at this point, the enemy is going to go in 4 turns, because our defend was a 2 CT, so it defended for 1 turn, and then he went to 5, and then ticked down to 4 while we were spending our last turn defending. So now the enemy's got 4 turns until they go. And this is where we kind of got stuck on the last stream, as I played around with a bunch of different numbers and explored some of this stuff. But at its core, I'm just struggling a little bit to figure out how the player is meant to deal with this. And I think it was brought up in chat that like we probably don't need to worry about this right now, because eventually I'll be able to give the player more abilities, and as their toolkit grows, they'll have better opportunities of dealing with this. And maybe I'm trying to just create behaviors for a slime enemy that's going to be fairly early on in the game experience, and maybe it's okay if it just stands there and gets hit. And I think I'm fine with that, but I also want to explore some of the behavioral logic, some of the things we can do with our enemy behavior. But I do, after having thought about it in between streams, I think I am going down a bit of a rabbit hole, which doesn't have, I'm not going to be able to solve with the current toolkit. We need more movement tech for the player, or ranged attacks, or some other way for them to deal with the AI moving and them not being able to connect with their attack. There just isn't a good option, which I think that in and of itself is a good sign that this is creating a behavior in which the current toolkit doesn't solve it, and means that we could create more abilities that the player would be interested in using, because hopefully they do solve for the player or the enemy moving before they get a chance to attack. But for right now, one of the things I wanted to explore was maybe breaking up the move and the attack from the enemy, because what's happening is the AI is taking a couple of turns to think, and it's saying, I want to move and then attack. And we combine that for the enemies. We don't do that for the player really right now. I may eventually want to do that, but at this current time, the player takes an action and there isn't a way to move and attack. You're just choosing to move or attack. But the AI kind of has this advantage almost, where when it takes a turn, it can choose to attack and move. This red is not going to show that, but if it chooses yellow, here it's going to prefer to move away from us and then attack. And I'm curious if we remove this being one set action and instead break it up into 2 actions, if that helps with some of the confusion I'm having around this situation. I think specifically I'm concerned that the player is going to be confused when the enemy takes an action that moves and attacks. There's issues with not letting the AI do that though, because then the AI might get into situations where the player can keep it always outside of range. So having the ability to move and attack is valuable just to compete with the player's intelligence, essentially. But if that's the case, I need to find a better way to communicate it. Sorry, I'm just working it through in my own head, but I think the short version is I still want to try breaking up the move, but it may not work. But I want to build the tech anyways. So right now, what is happening on this ability? It is trying to do a preferred distance of 2, and it has a chosen ability of this ability here, which is the bow attack. We also have chase, which doesn't have an ability. How does that work? When this doesn't have an ability associated with it, what does the game do? It just defaults to move towards opponent. But does it take into consideration the preferred distance? It doesn't look like it does. Because if we do a... check one of these plannings... somewhere in here, we saw last stream when I was digging around looking at this code, it does have a preference distance. Oh, I'm looking at the old AI evaluation script. We should be looking at the attack state system. Move towards nearest foe. Okay, this one, this newer version has the preferred distance logic. Okay, so in theory then, if we wanted to break up the AI bow into a move and an attack, could we do like an AI run? This is interesting. Right now is using this randomizer. If I make a new ordered list and I call this bow attack, oh, interesting. Okay, so there is a bit of coding work to be done here. If I set up this bow attack to be AI run, and then AI bow, and then I leave the preferred distance at -1, I think it won't try and move then? Oh, I'm not sure on that actually. But if we set it up like this, the AI won't always go to bow attack. Sometimes it might do something else. We might need some way of the AI knowing over multiple turns what it's trying to do. Because right now it only thinks about stuff on a single turn basis. Like, ordered ability picker does remember over turns that it's trying to do something, but at the most upper level, it doesn't know that it's trying to do that. That there's like a attack pattern in the middle of. So like we almost need like continuous attack patterns, and the ability for the attack pattern system to say, hey, I'd like to prioritize the last active pattern that the AI was trying to execute. So if it was like move and attack, it would try and do the move, and on the next turn, if the attack is still valid, it would try and do that. Otherwise, it would pick a new attack pattern. Okay, I'm going to think on that, but in the meantime, this should work in this very simple example. So AI run, AI bow. So this is going to try and do the preferred movement, and then this is going to try and do the attack. Let's make the run have a CT of like 2, and then the actual bow part have a CT of 3. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we're just trying stuff, and we will see. Okay, so it's trying to move. So if I try and attack it, it moves away. Yeah, so now it's constantly trying to move away, but there's nowhere to go that is the preferred distance, so it's just failing to move entirely. So here it's trying to get to preferred distance over and over again. So it is never doing an attack. Okay. Oh, even this one doesn't actually keep track. I was wrong. This doesn't remember the index it was last on. It always starts from the top of the list every time. What about... Random is going to randomly pick from everything. That's the data structure. Let's bring the slime back up. So this is an attack pattern. Is an attack pattern the version I want? Does this remember its index? It does. Okay, so it's not an ordered list. It's an attack pattern that I want to set up. So here for bow attack, instead of an ordered ability, I want an attack pattern. And I want it to choose AI run into AI bow. Same idea, but this one should remember its progress over multiple turns. But I can't put that attack pattern into a picker because this itself is not an ability picker. That feels like an oversight. If we do that, how does it break? It doesn't like that we're not using override now. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay. So now we should be able to drag this into randomize. And it'll choose between these two randomly, but AI chase only happens if the player is more than 3 away, and bow attack and AI run can only happen if the player is close. So if the player remains close, it'll keep trying to use bow attack in sequence one after the other, and then otherwise it'll use AI chase to catch up to the player. Logically, that sounds right. Okay, it did hit us. It chased. I think it's trying to do... I don't know what it's trying to do. Okay, it's trying to find its preferred distance. So even though it's at the preferred distance it needs to be at, it's still thought about... That makes sense. So we need more logic to know it's already at a good position, and it should skip trying to get to a good position, I think. Yeah, and then it's going to try and get to a good position again, and then it's going to attack. Okay. So we need some way of invalidating... Oh, no, we can do that. That's totally easy. We can do a change on AI run, so its min distance is 1 of 1. So it will only choose this ability if it's exactly 1 tile away from the player. So it's trying to move away, so we can try and attack, but it will dodge away, and then it's going to attack. Now here, I think it's trying to attack again. Yeah, okay. But it didn't move away. That's the big difference here. So here it's trying to move away. Okay, we need to get a different color symbol because it's too hard to keep track of with it both being yellow. Let's see, telegraph. Telegraph. Okay, we have several colors we could use. Right now we're using teal, red, and yellow, and this purple one, and gray for stun. We could try the pink one for run. Is that going to look enough different from the red one, though? I think that might be the reason we're not using it. We could try this brown one. That should look more different. Blue, maybe. Yeah, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll do this one. That should be the most... most easy to differentiate. So for the run, we will use this brown telegraph crystal so we can see whether or not it's about to run more easily. Because the CT number kind of tells you what it's going to do a little bit if you're paying attention, but depending on how much it drops down while you were finishing up a previous action, it's not 100% guaranteed to tell you what's happening. So here it's trying to run. There's not much we can do in this situation though, because we can't really... We could attack, but it's going to miss. Bash is definitely going to miss, and defend isn't going to do anything. So the best thing we could think to do is move, in hopes that we move in the same direction of it. And yeah, that worked out, but most of the time I think that's going to fail. Here we get ranged attack, but because of the order of the abilities, it almost doesn't realize that it should be moving away again. Weird. I'm surprised this is working so well. So yeah, it's going to try and range attack here, which I think means we can move up. But even here, this doesn't work because it's too fast on the move. Okay, so I think then this... Okay, this is working. What we do to combat that is we go into bow attack and we make it a CT of like 4. So it's a little bit longer. So it's in total, it'll take 2 CT to move. Sorry, it'll in total take 6, 2 CT to move, and 4 CT to actually perform the attack. But because they're broken up, we know that when it tries to move, we can move with it, and sometimes we'll get the wrong one. But funnily enough, if we move away, it tries to chase us. Yeah, still can't hit it here, too quick. If we move to it, we get hit, and it'll still be too quick. So I think we move away. Defend. It moved... Oh, I was misjudging. Is the yellow and brown too close? Did I mistake them? Okay, so that's trying to move away. So I can try moving. It moved with me, and now I could get a slash in. Then we get hit back. Then it's going to try and move away. We move with it. And I'm just, it only has 3 options. It can only move here, here, or here. So when we move in a random direction, when it tries to do that, there's a good chance, or a 33% chance that we'll end up moving with it. Now here it's going to try and chase us. I think defending is actually the right call, so that it'll end up next to us, and then we can attack it. And it's going to try and run, but even though it had 3 CT left until it actually attacked, it still was enough time for us to hit it before it moved again. So yeah, the fact that the move and the attack are now 2 different abilities allows us to get way more hits in than we were able to do before. I'm liking this. This is feeling more correct than what we had last time. In the previous stream, it just felt like we could never really make good decisions. And I think there are still somewhat, like, bad decisions in general here. Like, I think I can hit it. Yeah, I could hit it there because it was going to try and... It was going to attack, and we knew it was going to get an attack in, but then the move afterwards wasn't going to be fast enough for it to not get hit. This is the part where we're in trouble, though. This one here, I don't know how to... Like, as a player, there's no good option for me. It's going to try and move away from me, and I can't move to follow because I don't know which way it's going. So I can move a random direction, and then it's going to try chasing me. So I can defend so that it'll come up next to me, and then it's going to try and do the ranged attack next, because that would be the next thing it should do, because it tried moving away. Okay, it's kind of working, it's kind of not. So the reason it's kind of working is kind of because of a bug. Maybe it's a fine bug. So what's happening is it's moving away, then it's doing the chase, and then it goes back to trying to do the bow attack, but the next one in order, because it's already done a move away, is attacking. So it almost feels like it should reset the attack pattern once it doesn't choose it. But in that situation, we would be back to square one here. So if we did fix that so that it properly chased after me and then saw that it was next to me and then tried to move away. We're close. We're real close to having something that's interesting. Okay, it goes to this. We move away. It goes to chase mode. We defend. It comes back and tries to attack. We don't have enough time to hit it before it attacks, but we can attack before it gets a chance to run. Now it's trying to run so we can try and dodge, but then it goes back to trying to attack. We can move away. It'll chase. Now it's going to try and move away again. But it's out of range. We'd have to move, which costs us 2. I guess it still works. We can still get an attack in without it fleeing. Can we keep this up, actually? Did we get it into a rhythm? Yeah, because it costs us 2 to move. It goes down to 2 CT remaining until it does its attack. And then we attack it. It reduces down and it hits 0. Okay. So with these particular numbers, with our slash being at 4, you can get it into a rhythm if you time it up correctly to be able to continuously chase and hit it, and it can't get away. But you're getting hit every single time, and maybe that's okay. Okay. Again, I still think there's something to this, but in order to do that, we had to kind of do a weird behavior to start, which is that we had to have it say it's moving away, try and move in a random direction, have it come back to us with a chase, hit it, Yeah, it's really awkward, but we can get it into that state. All right, I want more logic. I want more control. So I think the next thing I want to do is I want it to remember the last chosen pattern. Yeah. How does this currently get sent out? This comes up with a plan. It tries to find out, it's going to loop until it finds a plan that it likes. And then it sets that plan as the plan of attack. And that's set up because eventually when we get to the very bottom and we do a fixed ability picker, that's actually populating the plan. But it has no memory as it sends this data back up the call stack of which attack pattern it chose. And even that's kind of arbitrary because we have like this ability picker and then we have an attack pattern which itself is a series of distance ability pickers, which are just an augmented version of the fixed ability picker. Words are starting to not make sense anymore. Okay, so when we use an attack pattern, we can do what I want. We can do whatever we want, but I'm trying to think of the correct way to code this or to build this. I'm going to change attack pattern back to a mono behavior. And we're going to let this be set up as the only one of these. There can only be one attack pattern, which is at the very top. And then everything below it will be different logic. That's the first step, because once we decouple this so that the bow attack isn't using the same thing as the root, that'll give us more control. So if we come into here, we're going to change this from attack pattern. I guess it's going to be an attack pattern picker to fit the naming scheme of the other ones. And so this one will operate very similarly, but will not be the same class. And this needs to be a it needs to be set up like this. Okay. And then here, inside of this bow attack setup, instead of this being an attack pattern, it can be one of these. And then it uses AI run. And it uses AI bow. Same setup. Okay. And then this will need to be hooked back up to the randomizer. Now, inside of this version, we're going to add to the plan of attack the base ability picker. Okay. And this can be null to start with. When this does a populate, if it didn't populate a plan at the lower level, it's going to just increment the count and keep looking for one. If it did increment the plan, it's going to, or if it did populate the plan, it's going to say, hey, I'm the ability picker that populated the plan. Please remember me. Okay. Then when we get up to the top level of the attack pattern, if this finds that this will actually be below, outside of the loop, after it's done looping through all of it, if it finds that there was a populated plan, it wants to save it. Going to keep the naming the same. Okay, so then it's going to save it. The next time we come in here and we try and pick a plan, we're first going to check if we have a previous plan. Actually, that's a better name for this. This should be previous. If it has a previous plan, what are we doing? We're going to try to pick from that plan immediately. I see the hydrate redeem unlockable. I don't have my water, so good call. I will go find that. Maybe should have set it to standby. But regardless, we're back. And the hydration has been completed. Alright. I want to change this. Instead of this being based off count, I think the way this one works is it's going to actually just loop No, that doesn't work. It's close to what I want to happen. But essentially we want this ability picker to, instead of always looping through until it finds something, we want it to just pick up from where it left off. So I think we do that. Yeah, I think that's right. So we're going to come in here. When we call pick on this, it's going to try and find the next thing in the index order. If it populates a plan, it's going to increment the index. I think we actually lose the while loop on this setup. Yeah, it just tries to get the next one in index order. Yeah, okay. We want to do a little bit of validation checking here, but otherwise I think this is fine. If index is less than... Oh, I guess what I actually want to check for is if count equals 0. And if it does, we're just going to leave. Okay, otherwise we're going to come in here, we're going to grab the index. We're also going to log a warning. Hello. How are you today? Dominus Moores? Dominus Moores? I'm never good at the names. All right. Attack pattern. Yeah, okay, so that's just a safety check. So what we're going to do is each time we call this attack pattern picker, we're going to start with index 0. We're going to try and pick a plan. If the plan is populated, we're going to increment the plan and say this was the ability picker that was actually chosen. Else, if we didn't populate a plan, I think we're going to reset index back to 0, and we're going to start over. Yes. Yeah, we failed to find that the next plan in this list was wrong, so we're going to reset the index to 0. If the count is ever at the final one, we also reset to 0. Okay. I feel like this could be cleaner, but I'm okay with that. So this should increment. So if we go back to the basic attack plan, when it tries to pick the next thing, it's going to check if it has a previous picker, and it's going to try and pick that one. Yeah. Okay. I figured I would come by and see what you're up to, due to I have been following you for a really long time, like 10 years. Yeah, honestly, game dev stuff has been the last little while. Sundays have been pretty consistently been doing 2 streams, 2 hours each, with like just a break for dinner in between, but just working on a video game. That's most of it. It's not the most interesting content, I don't think. I mean, some people do enjoy it. I don't mean to diminish the people who do. But to me, I feel like this is often more about me just being productive, and something about being on stream just like allows me to get a lot done and work through problems that are kind of like I've been stuck on for a little bit. That does mean that we do have streams like earlier today where it was just 2 hours of me just like fighting the same enemy over and over and going, this doesn't work, which I don't, again, think makes for the most interesting experience, but it does help me a lot. Don't go back in. Able to disclose what game you're working on, or is it your own project? It is my own project with my wife Trixie, and we've been working on it for a long time. I don't have a set release date because it is something that I work on primarily as a hobby, but we're trying to build out this kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. The latest thing I've been thinking is like a turn-based adventure game is maybe an easy way to say it, but it's a lot of things. But currently working on trying to chase down this AI and fail. But yeah, working on enemy behavior stuff today, but the core idea is that it's essentially like an isekai. You get resurrected in a new world. It has like a time loop mechanic where as you explore through the world, eventually you run out of time and you go back to the goddess realm, and then you can start a new run and then go further in. It's got fixed maps, so it kind of, I say run like it's a roguelike, but it's more like a fixed adventure. You just replay the same maps. As you slowly gain more knowledge about the areas and the world, you'll be able to get further and eventually complete certain chapters and then move on to later chapters, which will be kind of new loops, if that makes any sense. I don't know. It's been going along, shrugging along quite well, but it is very much a hobby. My work as an actual game developer tends to keep me rather busy, and sometimes I spend a day working on game dev and don't want to work on the hobby project. But I'm still working on it and still making progress day by day, or week by week sometimes. Okay, so this is going to work to choose this as the new plan. It won't get into here at all because it won't have to if it populated anything. So this is essentially prioritizing the previous ability picker, and if it failed to continue on that loop and it didn't populate it, then it would have also set the index back to 0, which means that when it goes through and does the normal sequence of trying to figure out what to do, it'll go back to the base one. Okay, I think this seems okay. I am doing quite well. I hope you're doing well as well. It's always great to see people stop in after, you know, being around for so long, having jumped in, jumped out. There's a number of people. I think we're coming up on 15 years on YouTube. When did I start? I can't remember if it was 2010 or 2011. Maybe. Was it 15 years? We may have passed that date, actually. Okay. I do think we also need to reset this back to null. If it didn't populate a plan, then it should set this back to null so we don't keep trying to use it as a priority if it's not populated a plan. Okay. So this will make it so that any ability picker that sets itself when it populates a plan will eventually come down here after the plan's been populated and set itself as the previous ability picker. At the start of the next run, when we try and figure out what to do next, we'll look at the previous ability picker, try and pick from its plan. If we fail, then we will set this to null. Otherwise, I actually think what we might want to do is this. It's a little more complicated, but I think it's will be more effective in the long run. If it still has an ability picker chosen after we pick a plan, this is the previous ability. And I think we want to fail in both of these situations, both when we get to index 0 and if we're at the last thing in the list. Again, so these things have the exact same logic. So I think it might be cleaner just to do, if we don't have a plan or we're at the end of the list, do this. And then we have two separate if statements. Yeah, that should work. Fallon Lumery with the raid of 3. Hope you had a good stream. What were you up to? And welcome in. Okay. I think this should work. We are currently working on a bit of logic change to the way that our AI decides on which attack it wants to do. And trying to test a system where the AI has a sequence of plans that it tries to execute. So right now, this brown telegraphing gem is telling us that it's going to try and run away, and then it's going to go to yellow as the next action it's going to try and take. So it should repeatedly repeat through those two actions. So it's going to try and do a flee, and then it's going to try and do a ranged attack. And we can move back up close to it, and it will still try and do this attack, and that's fine. If we move with it, even though we moved at the same time, we happened to, well, I guess in this particular situation, because it was in this corner, we kind of knew this was the only way it could flee, because every other angle that it could move to, because they can only move, like, they can't move diagonally, it had to move this way. And even though it chose a new ability on this tile, it didn't choose to flee again, because it just did that. Okay, so that is working. I don't know if it's clear or if it makes for good gameplay, but the thing I wanted to build, I think, is functioning. So it's always going to prioritize the previous ability picker over any other plans that it might have. I'm trying to think if there's a reason why that would cause me issues, but I think this should be okay. I'm sure I'll run into something eventually. So I guess to really test this, we should try adding more to this plan. So as long as it's still valid, it will attempt to keep performing those abilities. So if we go to our slime and we go into the bow attack, instead of just doing bow, run, we could try doing back-to-back. So as long as the player is still in range, it'll do 2 bow attacks. It's not the most interesting test, though. We could try doing the heavy smash attack. And I don't think that's anywhere else in the queue right now. Yeah, the only things we're choosing between is bow attack and chase only activates if the player gets far enough away. So I think just by adding the heavy attack, the only way we'll see it is if it is a valid option. And the heavy attack only happens if the player is next to the slime. So here we have it trying to run. So we can try moving with it. We ended up moving together just randomly, 33% chance. And then it's going to do its ranged attack. And then it does the heavy. Okay, so that is working as intended. So if we move away, it won't be able to find us. It gets stunned for a second and confused. I'd still like to add an animation of it like trying to attack the tile and then failing. But regardless, that's working. Okay, so now it's gonna... Oh, that's funny. It tries to move towards us, and then it tries to move away again. I want to... So after it gets stunned, it always seems like it goes into like a gray state of couldn't find anything to do. I want to look into that a little bit more, because the fact it moves towards and then away is kind of odd. Fallon, I don't know if you heard, but I asked what did you get up to? What were you streaming? Okay, I want to start this sequence over. So it comes towards us. It's going to move away. It's going to try and range attack. It'll do the ranged attack. Interesting. So it's now trying to pick... So there is a bug here, because it's trying to pick a new action to do. Oh, I see the flaw. Yes, I see the flaw. Oh, add jail. I don't know if I can turn that off. I have not looked into Twitch's like ad stuff very much. It looks like I cannot snooze. Oh, but I can run a 1 minute 30 ad to make it disappear. I've never looked at that before. Learning Rust with advent of code. I am not familiar with any of those words. Well, I do know of Rust in passing. I've heard of it, but I don't know much of it. So what's happening here is the AI is choosing to do the runaway, choosing to do the ranged attack, and then the next thing it wants to try and do is the melee, but it's not in range to do the melee. And it's not in range to do the chase, so the only other option it has is it has no options. Because it's going to try and do... It just finished doing bow, so it's going to try and do the melee attack, but we're too far away, so it's not going to be able to do that. It's going to fail this prioritized one. It's going to go back to the list, which will have randomize in it. It'll run through randomize. It'll find either chase or bow attack. Chase will be invalid because the player is too close. The player needs to be further away for it to trigger this ability. And when it tries to run bow attack again, it'll start from the beginning and try and do run, but run needs you to be next to the player. So it will fail every possible thing and not find the actual bow in the middle here. I need to rethink this a little bit. Quick question, the timer in the corner, is that a chess timer? Where is it counting down the moment of actions? Is that counting down the amount of actions you have in your turn? We've got a couple people who are new here, so we can do a quick run through of kind of the base. But if we go to, let's bring up the scene loader and let's go to F8 in our grid. The idea is the game is basically a isekai game in which you play hero who is resurrected into this world by a goddess. And you were set forth to defeat the demon lord. The world is full of this like miasma from the demon lord, and you're able to move through and reveal the world tile by tile. As you explore the world, you will eventually run into enemies and also some adventurers who are in need of your help. As you go through and explore that world, you will eventually run out of time. I need to not have this on by default. This is only supposed to appear after you step here, but whatever. So we get the help, and then Hero says that they'll try and find a way around. You exit the map, and you need to kind of work your way around to try and help that adventurer. I have some debug stuff turned on, so I have all the abilities currently unlocked, but we would normally gain Slash for the first time here, and we would walk forward and find some slimes. Eventually, to your actual question about the timer, you will run out of time and you will no longer have any more actions left. This is representing essentially the moment that the Demon Lord resurrects, because the Demon Lord hasn't been reborn when you first come into the world. And when the Demon Lord is resurrected, you will basically just lose. There will be a game over screen. Think like 30-second hero is an example that people tend to bring up, which I think is fairly apt. But essentially the game will end. Once you run out of time, which I'm going to just debug because there's more exploring and fighting and stuff, but once you run out of time, the miasma will overtake you and you'll be sent back to the Goddess Realm. Once you are sent back to the Goddess Realm, that is the end of that run. And the next time you start another run, you will be able to basically continue from where you left off. So oh, we broke it, or I broke it. I'm not entirely sure why. Well, that's the end of that demo. But basically, you would just start a new run. The thing I was trying to go show is a skill screen where you spend some of the skill points I was earning by hitting enemies with slash. You level up that skill tree in order to be able to become stronger, fight enemies, be better, gain access to new and unique abilities. But once you've leveled up, you'll be able to defeat the enemies more easily, as well as you'll eventually find more shortcuts. But when we get sent back off to the world that had been revealed remains revealed. So if I hadn't have had a bug there where I was forced to end the game, if I was to walk back through all the rooms, all the tiles would remain revealed, essentially. But this is the start of a new time loop, essentially. So you have your powers, but lose excess points in equipment. Is that right? Kind of that you keep your powers, and there isn't really equipment as much as like you unlock new abilities from finding weapons and stuff in the world. But when the Omni weapon, which is the thing that you're using, the whole like narrative MacGuffin, absorbs stuff in the world, it like stays out of the time loop. So even though we're starting over from scratch, the things that are absorbed by the Omni weapon stay absorbed, which will have some implications towards exploration and puzzle solving, essentially. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but essentially it's a Groundhog Day type thing. You're completely going through this same part over and over again, and like this is kind of the main like narrative crux of the first chapter, is trying to save this adventurer, and trying to get there quick enough. Part of it will be eventually gaining access to the ability to knock this over, in order to be able to gain the ability to get here soon enough. If I had have completed that first run, you would be able to come in from the other side, but you'll find that the adventurer is gone, essentially. Their weapon is lost, and they've died. But then when you come back in again, she's back, and you have to try and figure out a way to save her. And even at this point, the boar is pretty difficult to fight, and so even just getting in and fighting her is not quite good enough. So like there's more to it than that. Mixed 30-second hero mixed a bit with Bastion, kind of. Again, it's the things I've been referring to is because of you constantly going back to the Goddess Realm and doing more runs to try and make it further, it's almost a little bit more like Hades. Like each time you go back, there's a little bit more narrative. So there's like, it's like 30-second hero mixed with Bastion in terms of the tile moving stuff, but it's also kind of like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in that it's a single character tile-based, grid-based movement, mixed with Hades in the way that it does its story and its progression. Like I haven't found a way to elevator pitch it very well, because it's kind of just I started from like the narrative idea and built from there, and so it doesn't really fit into anything very well. But there are definitely like shades of a lot of different games, so there's definitely a lot of apt comparisons that can be made. So in this situation, we keep picking this as the primary thing that we're trying to do over and over again. But if we break that sequence by stepping away specifically after the ranged attack, the AI doesn't know what to do. So we need to have a viable attack for it to do in that situation. I think it's also highly possible that like I'm just putting a bunch of mechanics together and that they're not going to end up meshing, but I don't know. Like I'm excited by the idea of like this time loop, like having to do almost like runs like Hades, but with a fixed map, and trying to see if I can do a fixed map, almost like roguelike run structure, but make that interesting and fun. The other games that I've been seeing some comparison to is it's almost a little bit like an incremental game. Not an idle game, but like an incremental, which is a very specific subset of a very niche genre, but it's another potential comparison point. Oh, I do actually, before I fix this, I also want to check to see if the skill screen is broken from here as well, because the skill screen broke when we looked at it in the Goddess Realm, but it did not break here. No, it didn't. So why is it only breaking in the Goddess Realm? Oh, I wonder if it's something to do with picking up the slash ability is somehow breaking it. Because that would be the only difference between here and the Goddess Realm. Sorry, minor aside. I just wanted to see if it breaks if we just immediately end the run. So I'm going to debug, end it. Yeah, okay. It's something to do with picking up slash. I bet you it's picking up slash while already having the slash ability. That's probably what broke it. So it's kind of because I'm in a debug state. Okay, cool. All right, so if the AI cannot find a proper attack pattern, what if we add in just AI bow attack as a viable thing it can do? I think that means that it should always find some sort of option. But this kind of breaks up my pattern structure I'm trying to go for now, where sometimes it might just choose to just do a ranged attack in melee. Okay. I think it's working from a programming standpoint. Like, it's mechanically functioning the way that I want it to. Now the problem is the design solution. So like, what do I put in for the data? So if we want to have this be like an attack pattern that the enemy does, I think just having it be run then bow is more accurate for what we're trying to achieve here. But this means if this is the setup and if we've done this the way that we've done this, it will never do a bow attack before doing a run, because we've built it in such a way now that the only way that it can do this is by going run then bow. And that means if the AI is already away from you, then it will never perform a bow attack. Let's add the dash attack in and see how that starts to feel. Because the dash attack allows the enemy to move towards you and attack. Although the whole thing we're trying to do here is to try and separate the move and the attack into two different actions. So this is still set up to be one action, a moving and attacking. So I guess if we wanted to try and make this consistent, we should do a dash attack pattern. We want to call this pattern as well, just for clarity. Okay, and so dash attack pattern would be a AI dash, I guess is what I'll call that. So this will have a preferred distance of 1 and we'll have a max distance of 2. And a min distance of 2. So it'll only perform this action if it's away from you. Has a CT of 2. And so then if we do dash into dash attack, I think this will do what I want. So now the movement is broken out of the actual attack ability and is instead its own individual action that is being telegraphed. I guess the way that we copied this. So here the AI is going to try and run. So it chose bow. Then if we move towards it and then attack, the only valid option again is for bow. If we just wait and let it attack us, then it tries to come towards us. Well, we hard broke it. Okay. Something's going on with the way that we're performing abilities that I need to look into. I think it's most likely that because the AI can move now during an attack instead of just always sitting in front of you, this moment here when it doesn't know how to complete because the AI left the tile is where I think we're running into some problems. Oh yeah, it's super broken now. We were not seeing this before. So is it something to do with the introduction of the dash attack? Something about its behavior of thinking through is causing an infinite while loop of some kind? Interesting. Okay, so it's kind of working, but it's also still kind of confusing. We're gonna have to find a better way of communicating all of this information. Like, mechanically, I think it's interesting. And it feels like there are decisions that I can make that are better than just like, I just hit them until they die and they just hit me until I die. But all of the movement stuff in adding complexity and more interesting decision making is just making the UI part of it just way more complicated and harder to communicate. Yeah, we can just never get an attack in. We have to, like, defend a hit. Oh, it broke again. Yeah, it's failing to find a valid target, but, like, what is... No one's attacking right now. Huh. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to just solve it. We're gonna have to figure out what's going on. So if we come into here, we perform the attack. We can defend, that's fine. We can move forward, that's fine. Defending, also fine. Performing an attack, that's okay. Here now we're in a state where it failed to find a target. There are no errors. So it didn't... It did not fail in a way that is... It did not fail in a way that it is confused, but it definitely is in a broken state, I think, right now. So if we do defend right now, that's what's causing the break. Okay, so trying to defend while we're in this broken state with our sword, that's what's causing it to be busted. Now, why is that? If we go into defend, specifically this version, because defend is waiting on the idle animation. So if you were in the middle of doing something else, it's going to wait for the idle to finish, but we're not in an idle, we're in an attack animation because it expected you to follow through. Okay, so the correct fix here is to solve for what happens when the AI moves. So we're going to need to look at our ability system, and we're going to need to come up with a fail state where if it finds that the tile no longer has an enemy on it, it chooses to do something else. Oh, that might be tricky, actually. Because what's happening here? What is actually... slash is what I'm looking for. If we go to our slash ability, this sets an initial ability that says, all right, play the wait for idle and then play the slash ability. So that happens as soon as you hit the A button. It says, okay, play slash. And then it's going to wait for a pause event and then set the animation speed of our sprite renderer to 0. So it's going to wait for the pause frame, which I think is like frame 2 or something, where so hero pulls out the sword and has got the sword ready. And then we wait until we actually perform the effect. And so the effect part will go into this damage effect, and we'll try and set the animation speed to 1, which should then continue the animation and perform the slash, as well as do a bunch of stuff around combo checking, playing particles, calculating damage, applying damage, etc., etc. Now, that all being said, I think it's failing here because it's trying to find a unit by tile offset. So after it's done the initial ability, then it's trying to apply the effect, and it's trying to find the unit in front of the player and sets the found unit. And if found unit is true, we go into the hit effect. So what we need is we need some sort of separate effect for when the found player or found unit is not 1. Okay, that seems reasonable. If we come into here, call this miss effect, and we do face target, that's probably unnecessary in this situation. We're going to leave it for now. This is doing the sword attack. That's fine. We can leave that. We can set the animation to start the slash effect. That's still okay. Doing some UI stuff we don't care about. Target face attacker. Okay, so this we don't want to have happen. We don't want the AI to face the player in this situation because it's not actually going to get hit. We're not going to cause the enemy to flash. We're not going to do a directional spray effect. We're not going to do a cloud impacts effect. Don't need to worry about combo. We're not going to worry about calculating damage, granting experience, or damage applied. We do want to call damage miss, I think. And we're not going to need a conditional component checking something here. This will just play. Why does this need a hit value? It does not. That's fine. Okay. So then it's going to try and miss. It's going to delay 1, and then it's going to set the animation speed back to 1 on the attacker. Why do we need to do that? We set it to 1 here. I think this is a holdover from older tech. I'm not seeing anywhere where we pause it again. So I don't think we need this. I'm going to try turning it off and see what happens. This delay is fine. Oh, interesting. We can probably leave all of this stuff on. Technically, it's trying to do grant experience stuff, so I guess we should default this value to 0. Yeah, because we give 5 experience for missing, so I guess I could leave that on so it acts the same way. And then the most important thing here is that this will have the opposite effect of the hit. So if it doesn't find a unit, instead of doing the hit effect, it'll do the miss effect. We'll still face, we'll still do the same moving of the character, we'll start the animation speed. Oh, this is where it is. This is waiting for pause and then setting it, so we do need this. And then UI select, I'm going to leave for now, and then we just do experience granted, and then we do a custom notification for the player having missed, grant some experience, and then show the experience as a notification as well. Okay. So all that said, if we hit play now, Slash should be able to miss, and it'll just play out the animation with a bit of text. Okay, so the enemy is going to move. It did not. What else did we miss? Still not slime. Still looking for Slash. Effects, cost, damage effect. This has no conditional associated with it. This only has one conditional, which is unit found. That should be fine. We should get in here. Oh. Does it just fail? I think it won't actually run this. I don't know where it is, but somewhere in the logic... Is it calculate damage? Something in here says, hey, this was valid. Yeah, set valid true. It needs one of these to be set. Out of curiosity, if we calculate damage... but we don't run any of the logic for showing the damage notification, and we don't actually apply that damage, does it work? I'm going to guess still no, because I think when it goes to calculate the damage, it's going to find that there's no unit and it's going to fail. So it's going to move. Yeah, it's still failing somewhere along the way, but it's failing silently, which is so helpful. All right. So, yeah, if defender is not equal null. So I don't think it's going to set that this is valid. Do we have an ability effect that just says valid? Where else is this used? Several places. Part of movement systems. Part of pushing systems, jumping, simple. Perfect. We have an is valid ability effect. So if we go back into the slash, we're going to leave calculate damage turned off, and we're going to is valid, make a new ability effect. We just do it here. Is valid ability effect. We're going to add that. And that will now say the miss is valid. So even though we're not doing any damage or we're not moving, we're going to say, hey, it's totally fine. This is a valid thing to be performing. Please execute this. Still not 100% sure this is going to work. Okay, it's going to try and flee. No, it still doesn't work. So somewhere along the line, it is breaking. So we're going to have to go all the way up to the top. Where would this be executing? Let's look at our combined turn combat state. This is where everything happens at the same time. This is going to queue up the plan that the player has, which should be here. When we increment the plan each tick, it'll eventually find... Thanks for stopping in, Fallon, and thanks for the raid. Hope you have a good evening. And yeah, I'm sure the bug will come. We'll figure it out, but we're going to have to go through step by step, because I have not followed this code path before. We have not run into a situation where an enemy moves midway through an attack, but I'll figure it out. Anyways, I hope you have a good evening, and thank you for the follow. Unlockable characters asking in Twitch chat, so the issue is you're stuck targeting an object that is no longer there, so the action is never completed. That is correct. We have not really had this situation, because normally the AI just sits there, and that's what that's like the whole thing that I'm trying to do this evening. The whole point of all of this is to try and get the AI to be more mobile, but it kind of is highlighting a major flaw or bug in our ability system, where things break down if the AI starts moving. But I do not think that this is unsolvable. I just need to find where the crack is in the logic and then fill in that crack. I'm just trying to figure out where we start, because technically the AI already has, or sorry, the player has already made a plan. When you hit A, it queues that up as player is going to try and do slash. And again, it tries to do an initial effect of playing the animation, and then it stores that. And then every time the game ticks forward a time unit, it increments the CT until that plan is ready. Once that plan is ready, it gets and clears that plan, and it puts that plan into a sortable list of sequence steps. Interesting. So that means, have we executed the ability yet? No, we haven't. Because the ability, what is the plan? Where do we actually fill this information in? Because this is where we actually get it, but it's not where it's performed here. This is where you actually, the UI says you've pushed the A button, This is the plan. This is the ability I'd like you to do. And that gets put into a ability sequence step. Specifically, it grabs the initial one and tries to put that into action. And then here, ability sequence step. This is what's actually getting called. The moment that the player is trying to perform it, all the CT is counted up. We're at 4 and it should be swinging. This is the chunk of code that should be executing on ability perform. So this is where we need the breakpoint to start. Unlockable characters asking, so why don't attacks target tiles instead of enemies and then do damage to what is on that tile? I would actually... I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that is how it's currently set up. Kind of. Technically, I target directions. So I say I want to perform this slash in this direction, and then it will try and find a tile in that direction to perform the attack on. It doesn't even have to be in front. It could be, and it could be a number of different tiles. It could be a whole cleave of multiple tiles, if I wanted to set it up that way. But really, it's more directional based, and then it tries to find the associated tiles based off the player's current direction. So if it was a big line attack, it would do that based off of whichever facing you have. So in this situation, the current target is a target direction with a target tile. The current target tile is our own tile, interestingly enough, but the target direction is the thing that we care more about in this particular situation. So we're trying to perform the ability north, essentially, but I think it's this can perform that is failing. So it's sending a notification. I'm going to go back up and we're going to just look for where can perform is being called. This is checking the cost. None of these should be getting hit. So I'm going to go back up and we're going to check the toggle. It is true. So that's saying that we can perform it. It did not fail. And then it's going to go through and try and perform each part of the ability, and it's going to go through and try and perform each of those step by step. So this is where it gets complicated, because technically it is actually trying to execute it at this point. It's saying, I'm going to try and do all of the ability steps on the targets, and we're only passing in the one target right now in the current system, which is primarily, again, a direction. And it's going to go through every single one of my ability steps, and it's going to try and perform it with north being the thing it cares about. And there's a can perform on each child object as well. So for example, this first one is cost, and that cost effect is being applied. It's making sure that there aren't any conditional things that are preventing it from being activated. And then it is going to apply and construct a sequence step. And this in turn is setting up a sequence step for modifying the stats and reducing your MP, which I think technically doesn't do anything. But the problem here is that we're going to have to go through all of the effects until we find the one that we care about. So if we come back into here, we can't do that while we're debugging. We need to find a specific effect. I don't know if there's a good way to do this. I think the easiest is just going to be to hit a breakpoint here and then just look at what each effect is. Okay, so this is show tile direction. That's fine. We don't care about that. This is hit default. This is distance default, found tile default. So this is defaulting all of our initial properties for us. Then it's tile 0, 1. What is this effect doing? It is applying, and it is trying to get, based off the direction, a offset, and that offset will be 0, 1, which 1y is basically in front of the player. So it's going to try and find a tile in front of the player, and it finds it. It's 5, 3. And it's going to try and get a unit on that tile, and it's going to find that that's null. So it did not find a tile. So it's going to set its associated property to 0. This should be setting found unit to false, or to 0, essentially. So then if we go forward, the next tile should be hit effect. We expect that we won't be able to perform this because it did not find a unit, and that is correct. The next one should be move effect. That's not right. Then invalid destination tile effect. This is all doing movement stuff. Yeah, this is all movement related. Did we modify the wrong ability? Okay, we're out. We're out. We're done. We're done debugging. Oh, we didn't get to the... Okay, well... Sometimes I'm not so smart, chat. We were debugging our way through the move. We need to debug our way through the attack. Okay. Okay. I got so caught up in trying to show and explain, I forgot where we were. Okay, so let's try that again. So we're going to do the attack. It's going to try and perform that ability. This will be... This is it performing the initial ability. We're going to ignore that and skip over it. This is it, the enemy moving. This is the slash. Okay, so we found the right one. I don't think it's trying to target the new tile of the enemy. I think it's still trying to target... Honestly, I don't know. We're gonna find out though. Subperform. Okay, here, same thing. So we're gonna go through. Cost, don't care. In fact, we're gonna add a watch so that we can see it updating down here. Ideally, if it thinks about it long enough. Okay, so show tile, hit default. Okay, so here's where it's actually trying to target the tile. It failed. I'm not sure where it is right now. Damage effect. Hit effect. Miss effect. Can perform. True. Interesting. Oh, okay, okay. That's the part that's failing. I see it. Let me explain. So we have a system to make sure that ability effects can perform on multiple things. So we have this idea that you could do an effect on an enemy, and say you were to do, the prime example is if you were to try and use a healing effect on a zombie. If it's a zombie, instead of doing the effect on the effect of healing, it should do damage. And so we have like this kind of ability effect system that says, okay, this particular ability effect targets this thing essentially. In this situation, I forgot when we copied over the hit effect that it had this enemy only ability effect. And so this is trying to say, hey, when we try and do this, make sure that we get a valid target of an enemy. And we didn't even get down all the way, but eventually it should check to make sure that it is of type foe. But we failed because the target, which in this situation is a direction, it's saying, does that have a unit? And it's saying, no, it doesn't. So if it doesn't have a unit, then it can't be an enemy, and therefore this effect can't happen. I do believe we need to have a ability effect target of some kind, though. It needs to know what it's going to be targeting. No, it doesn't actually. It looks like if it finds a list of an empty list, it will default to saying it can perform. Okay, so all that being said, I think if I remove this, now it should be working, because it's no longer saying the miss has to be performed on an enemy. Now it doesn't care what it's being performed on. I love my system. I think it's really good and super well organized for, or sorry, it's super well built for data entry, so that you can build all of this kind of complex logic with a series of game object steps, essentially. But it means that if I forget how it works, which I do occasionally, it becomes rather difficult to figure out how this is supposed to be working. Again, I think it's the opposite of what I was saying. It's not super well organized in some ways, but it's super flexible. But that super flexibility makes it very hard to keep track of all of the nuances and little pieces. But in the end, this makes sense. It had a script on it that said, hey, this effect should only target an enemy, and it's trying to target a tile, basically, and that's not valid. So okay. What's going on with the experience above our head showing up as 0 XP? Why is that happening? Interesting. Because we don't see that normally. Drixie with the hydration. Appreciate ya. Okay. So, when we hit normally, which is going to be tricky to do, here we should get it. We don't see any experience at all. So why is it then when we do the miss, we're seeing that like XP 0? I've rejected the stretch, and I've given you back your channel points. We're only 10 minutes away from the end of this stream, I think, and I don't feel like moving the desk up for 10 minutes. But I appreciate the thought. I will do some stretch after the stream, and I'll do it for free. So we get /V1 that appears above our head normally when we attack. And that's from the moment we actually, like, level up, essentially. Which I don't even see where that's living. But experience on hit. Experience granted, expected value 0. This is defaulting to 0. Ah, I see. This miss one has a conditional property of defeated. Being 0. So if you did not defeat the enemy, I have a feeling we're not setting that up. Yeah, check for defeat with damage. So we need to default defeated to false in this situation, I think. Where is this? Grant experience default. We want to do defeated. We want to default that to 0 so that it'll actually do this grant 5 experience. Yes. And then once we have that grant 5 experience coming into here, this is just dead code. It only shows up if experience granted is 0. And that means that you did not get any experience. Okay, so I think this experience hit can just be removed, but I'm not entirely sure. I will dig into that a little further later, but I have a feeling that that is no longer needed. And that's kind of the other problem with this ability system is it's super flexible, but that also means that there are times when you like leave stuff behind and it just becomes dead code that lasts forever. This is going to make it very easy to test this bug as well. Yeah, there's an issue with miss specifically, and this is true even when we normally miss, where we get this key not found value. Oh, it's because we're missing a custom hit element. That's supposed to be set to something? Something. What is it here? This is calculate. Does apply damage to it? No, that's actually applying it. This is a hit notification. Interesting. Let's type in miss. That's a lot of damage miss, but we're looking for the front end systems. And we're looking for combat UI, UI pools. Is it just a hit component? Yeah, I think at some point I made that custom. You know what? We'll do it this way. Custom hit notification. We made it so this requires an element. Or it needs specifically a name to be given. And I feel like we never did that for this one. don't know if this is going to work. We're going to try, but I think it can just use a hit element, and that should allow the miss text to show up. And that's probably been broken since we set up the like slash level 1, level 2 stuff. Yeah, it just needed a hit element added to it. Like, even that makes it so much more clear. Like, hero swings and misses. Like, that feels better. Like, just having that little bit of communication. I mean, the AI is complaining about not finding targets or something, but like, yeah, that's fine. That's just us moving when it's about to attack, which realistically, the AI should actually probably do something similar. Right now, the AI targets tiles. Yeah, it has a tile it tries to attack. And then if it finds that there are no units in those targets, it fails. We should probably let it perform the targeted attack on the tiles. Same way that Hero's doing, so that the AI actually does like its animation, plays the particle, and then just says miss. I don't know. There's probably something more complicated going on here, but at the very minimum, we should get that working maybe next time. The weird bug I was noticing, though, was the miss text was never moving to follow Hero. As we were moving around the environment, chasing this slime forever, the miss was always in the first spot that it showed up. Maybe not the first spot. Okay, that looks like it might be working correctly. Okay, there it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not doing a thing. Oh, this is interesting. So, because we added that is valid to miss, that means technically you can swing your sword anywhere and just miss on anything. Neat, but not intended. I think the is valid thing I added is probably not correct. I'm going to disable it, but I'm going to try and remember to delete it if it still works after removing it. Because technically the is valid is being checked the moment you try and press the A button. So if the AI moves away, the attack should still be valid. And it'll, like, it's already decided it's valid, but here it can't be performed. Interesting, the blue tile stuff is appearing. That's only happening because of the miss. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's... We left that turned on. That was this here. I hadn't realized we never get into this if it doesn't find a unit on that tile. I don't know if I care that much, but that's kind of an interesting little find. Is the enemy's location not updated until it takes a turn again? I'm not quite sure what you mean unlockable characters. Like, the AI updates its position the moment it moves, essentially. It usually knows where the player is planning to move, because, like, the move for the player can take a few seconds. So it can, like, know where the player is going to be and that the player's tile is currently empty. This is definitely frustrating. Oh, you're talking about the miss. Sorry, I'm all over the place right now. No, you've got a good call. So I think what's happening there though is basically it's using the last known position of the, or wherever the miss was last shown. It's not updating it to a new location. Like at some point the miss was played here, and when we choose to get a new miss from the pool, it's not updating it to the new spot and instead just playing it where it was last shown. I would put dollars to donuts on that. Like, I feel like that's what's happening because I've seen this type of problem before. So that was at some point the last place where it showed it, and now each time it picks the miss again, it's like, oh, I'm just going to display it, but it's not rechecking the position because it works the first time. It's just after we've run out or used enough in the pool that we get into this like bad old state version. I don't know how to fix that right now. I guess we could go look at it. If we look at the, what are those? Those are hit notifications. What did I call it? Hit something? Hit effects? That doesn't seem right. They should all be disabled. Hit elements. It's right. It's not in the combat grounds. It is in the UI section. So in here, when we try and hit this guy, that one is appearing. So it's using the first one in the list, and it should be anchoring it and aligning it to the unit. Refresh, align to unit. Oh, I wonder if it thinks it's dead. Oh, we can't do that. It's going to hit it every single time. You know what? Either that or we're just not calling refresh on this information. No, that doesn't sound right either. If we toggled this continuous just for a quick test here. Nope, still broken. So it's not... I need to find a way to get the refresh call. Maybe update data would be something that's only called infrequently enough to see it here. Yeah, somehow we managed to refresh with null. Oh. Duh. There is no unit. Chat, there's no unit. So there was nothing on the tile. So it sent the miss with the hit unit being null. And because there's no unit, how can we align to it? There's no unit. Can't align to a thing we don't have. Okay. So realistically, this should be maybe targeting not a unit, but a tile, maybe, so that we can miss on the tile. Like, where does this come from? This must come from somewhere, right? This is from allocating the pool object, which we lose track of a little bit here. It's not well laid out in this part, but this is where it happens. So we're allocating it with this hit screen component data, which came from custom notification here, which gave it a unit based off of the hit notification effect. I see it. I see a way. So what we can do... I hate that I have to debug to figure this stuff out, though. That's the thing. Like, it feels like it's all here, but I have to debug in order to understand how to actually modify my system. So if we come into damage miss hit component, instead of applying it to the attacker, we should apply it to... Or sorry, instead of applying it to the target, we should apply it to the attacker. So now the miss will appear over Hero's head instead of appearing over the slime, because if you miss, sometimes there may not be a slime. Simple, easy, flexible, fantastic, easy to code. Just borderline impossible to tell what's happening sometimes. Like, maybe that's just like a methodology issue with like the way that I write. Like some of my edge cases, like it maybe should have been giving an error there instead of silently failing and just saying, yep, no unit found. Like right here, instead of just failing, maybe there should have been a debug here that said like, you know, debug warning, aligning to unit, no unit given. You know what I mean? Like just something like that to be like, oh, and then even from there, we could have just put a breakpoint on that debug if we were still confused, and it would have been much more easy to follow the call stack back. Yeah, that's working now every time. It's a little weird that it's the miss is over Hero's head instead of over where the AI was, but I mean it at least not showing up in the middle of the screen or off to one side, so still an improvement. I do like that I can gain a level just from like missing and chasing this little slime around. So now if enemies miss, it'll appear above their heads, just because if all misses are above Hero's head, it could get confusing. Yes, yeah, no, technically I've only changed it for the slash ability, but once I've decided how we want this to work, I should apply this to the damage effect, which is shared across every one of my different ability types, so that all this functionality will be shared across every enemy attack. And then yeah, the AIs will show the miss above their head, because it's not targeting heroes specifically, it's targeting the attacker to show the notification over, instead of targeting the target unit to show the notification over. I'm actually really sorry. I'm still a little like excited about the fact that this blue tile is showing up. Oh, that's funny. All of these are appearing here in the confirmation menu too. I need to disable these little I need to disable the CT counters by default. But yeah, no, this blue I think hasn't been displaying for months, if not a year or more, just simply because of the way that we had set up the ability logic. What happens if we let the enemy attack us here? They'll go to their slash ability, and then they move towards us. If we move away here, what happens? It still chases us. Okay, we might want to set all melee abilities to be stationary. I'll have a think on that. Oh, we're over time. I think this ended up being successful in the end. I don't know whether or not this is the direction I'll go, but I do like that we were able to set up a attack pattern ability picker that essentially allows us to have a sequence of abilities that we want to perform in order. So it will try to move away, and then it will try and do the ranged attack, and those are separated into 2 different actions. I like that. It feels more clear. I like that we fixed the actual like attack to miss properly. Now we need to do the same thing for the AI, so the AI can handle missing the player. And that'll make the stun feel way better if they like try to perform the attack animation and then nothing happens and they go to stunned. Ideally, there should be like a unique animation, I think, for missing, but I don't know. We'll figure that out eventually. Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird day. I feel like whenever we do game dev and whenever we do game design stuff for these game dev streams, I always feel like it's a lot of me just going, I don't know. And that's because I don't. And I have to work through it step by step. And I feel like it's not, like, at least when we're doing like a code stuff, like the skill items last week, it was like, here's my objective. I know what I'm going in. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be building, and then I'm going to build it. Whereas with the design stuff, sometimes it's very ambiguous of like, this doesn't feel right. And I'm just going to play with numbers until I find a thread or an idea that I want to pursue. And it just ends up feeling more lost than when we're doing code stuff and features. But regardless, this has been fun. I'll be back next Sunday for more game dev. Thanks for everyone for popping in. Thanks Unlockable Characters for the hydrate. That's all I got. For now, this will be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.